That's why the fund has not been successful. That's the problem with majority of the things that we do as the copper colored race of North America. We are our worst enemy. The worst enemy. He did something that no one else had done before, as far as putting together a trust fund strictly by us and for us. And instead of the investors who invested protecting it, you allowed the loud professors to go around and profess negativity about him, which affects the fund. So, again, shout out to the brother Jay Morrison and his family, who has stuck in there and is still continuing with his head hung high, not hiding out, but being straightforward with the investors of what's going on with the fund. I wish great success for the Legacy Center, as well as the fund itself, that it will continue to grow and develop. We got to learn how to do what our elders taught us to do, which is, if you don't have anything positive to say, don't say anything at all. Like, it's not going to kill you to not say anything at all. Find you something else to play around with. For all those content creators, create something else, right? Get some other content that you can create about. Because constantly talking about an investment that many Asiatics gave their last to in the negative way is not helping the investment at all, right? So I'm going to move forward, get into we'll get into the Holy Quran. We're going to get into the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, divinely prepared by the Noble Drew Ali, by the guidance of his Father God Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from his sinful and fallen stage of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his Father God Allah. And I'm going to go down to chapter 40. Go down to chapter 47. Chapter 47. Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. And it reads, the inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites and the inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. Right? The inhabitants, that means that they aren't from there, but they inhabit there, are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan, right? Old man Cush and his family are the first inhabitants of Africa who came from the land of Canaan. His father Ham and his family was second. Then came the word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of Amexem, the first true and divine name of Africa. The dividing of the land between the Father and the Son. The dominion of Cush, northeast and southeast Africa, and northwest and southwest was his father's dominion of Africa. In later years, many of their brethren from Asia and the Holy Lands joined them. The Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit northwest Africa. They were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire, with their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan, seeking new homes. Their dominion and inhabitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa, across Great Atlantis, even into the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands, before the great earthquake which caused the great Atlantic Ocean. The river Nile was dredged and made by the ancient pharaohs of Egypt in order to trade with the surrounding kingdoms. Also, the Niger River was dredged by the great pharaoh of Egypt in those ancient days for trade, and extends eastward from the river Nile westward across the great Atlantic. It was used for trade and transportation. According to all true and divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, black, or colored race attached to the human family, because all the inhabitants of Africa were and are of the human race and descendants of the ancient Canaanite nation from the Holy Land of Canaan. What your ancient forefathers were, you are today without a doubt or contradiction. There is no one who is able to change man from his descendant nature of his forefathers, unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator Allah himself. These holy and divine laws are from the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the founder of the United of Moorish Science Temple of America. These laws are to be strictly preserved by the members of all the temples of Moorish Science Temple of America, that they will learn to open their meetings and guide it according to the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Every subordinate temple of the Grand Major Temple is to form under the covenant of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and to create their own laws and customs in conjunction with the laws of the Holy Prophet in the Grand Temple. I, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, was sent by the great God Allah to warn all Asiatics of America to repent from their sinful ways before the great and awful day is sure to come. The time has come now when every nation must worship under its own vine and fig tree, and every tongue must confess its own. Through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery due to the fact that they honored not the creed and principles of their forefathers. This is why the nationality of the Moors was taken away from them in 1774, and the word Negro, black, and colored was given to the Asiatics of America. The Asiatics of America, who were of Moorish descent, because they honored not the principles of their mother and father and strayed after the gods of Europe of whom they knew nothing, right? 1774. What happened in 1774? Well, let's look. Let's see what's going on with 1774, right? Because Prophet Noble Ali also mentioned 1774 and the Moorish literature, or in the Moorish Guide, which is the editorial, and the Moorish literature being a compilation of the Moorish Guide editorial, Islam. So Prophet Noble Ali said in A Divine Warning from the Prophet for the Nations, number 10, he said, the 14th and the 15th Amendments brought the North and the South in unit, placing the Southerners who were at that time without power with the constitutional body of power. And at that time, 1865, the free national constitutional law that was in force since 1774 declared all men equal and free. And all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal. Since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendments for the salvation of our people and citizens. Right? So, what happened in 1774 that put us in this bind, right? What put us under this bind? Well, let's go to the Declaration of Resolves of the First Continental Congress. All right, this is October 14th, 1774. And it reads, whereas since the close of the last war, the British Parliament claiming the power of right to bind the people of America by statutes in all cases whatsoever, hath in some acts expressly imposed taxes on them, and in others under various precedents, but in fact for the purpose of raising a revenue, that hath imposed rates and duties payable in these colonies, established a board of commissioners with unconstitutional powers, and extended the jurisdiction of the courts of admiralty, not only for collecting the said duties, but for the trial of causes merely arising within the body of a county. All right. So what happened in 1774? Right? They have imposed rates and duties payable in these colonies, established a board of commissioners with unconstitutional powers, and extended the jurisdiction of courts of admiralty, not only for collecting the said duties, but for the trial of causes merely arising within the body of a county. So, what does that mean? So, what that means is we're going to tax our colonists to death. That's all that meant. We're going to tax you to death. It further reads, and whereas in consequence of other statutes, judges who before held only estates at will in their offices have been made dependent on the crown alone for their salaries, and standing armies kept in time of peace. And whereas it has lately been resolved in Parliament that by force of a statute made in the 35th year of the reign of King Henry VIII, colonists may be transported to England and tried there upon accusations for treason and misprisons or concealments of treasons committed in the colonies, and by a late statute, such trials have been directed in cases therein mentioned. Yeah, so if we don't like what you do, we putting you back on a ship to go back to Europe, and we're gonna try you again because your freedom is coming up soon. So, in order for us to continue to have you as a perpetual slave forever, we're going to retry you. And whereas in the last session of Parliament, 3 statutes were made, one entitled An Act to Discontinue in such manner and for such time as are therein mentioned, the landing and discharging, lading or shipping of goods, wares, and merchandise at the town and within the harbor of Boston, in the province of Massachusetts Bay in New England. Another entitled An Act for the Better Regulating the Government of the Province of Massachusetts Bay in New England. And another entitled An Act for the Impartial Administration of Justice in the cases of persons questioned for any act done by them in the execution of the law or for the suppression of riots and tumults in the province of Massachusetts Bay and New England. And another statute was then made for making more effectual provision for the government of the province of Quebec, etc. All which statutes are impolitic, unjust, and cruel, as well as unconstitutional, and most dangerous and destructive of American rights. It's unfair. We don't have a union to back us and protect us. It's whatever King Henry is saying. Whatever he's saying. You got to remember, the Massachusetts Bay Company charter was coming up, where it was about to be finished. So how do I continue? If I'm a king, how do I continue to keep a stronghold on the Massachusetts Bay Company? Well, the only other way to do it is all of the colonists, bring them back to Europe and try them again. So yeah, so they don't get to be free. They'll be a continual slave of Europe. Islam. It says, and whereas assemblies have been frequently dissolved contrary to the rights of the people when they attempted to deliberate on grievances, and their dutiful, humble, loyal, and responsible petitions to the crown for redress have been repeatedly treated with contempt by His Majesty's ministers of state. That kind of sound like what's going on in Atlanta right now, don't it? We gonna make you treasonous. All y'all going down. It says, The good people of the several colonies of New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island, and Providence plantations, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Newcastle, Kent, and Sussex on Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, justly alarmed at these arbitrary proceedings of Parliament and administration, has severely elected, constituted, and appointed deputies to meet and sit in General Congress in the city of Philadelphia in order to obtain such establishment as that their religion, laws, and liberties may not be subverted. Whereupon the deputies so appointed being now assembled, and a full and free representation of these colonies, taken into their most serious consideration, the best means of attaining the ends aforesaid do in the place, as Englishmen, their ancestors, in like cases have usually done for certain in vindicating their rights and liberties, declare that the inhabitants of the English colonies in North America, by the immutable laws of nature, the principles of the English Constitution, and the several charters or compacts, have the following rights. Resolve that they are entitled to life, liberty, and property, and that they have never ceded to any foreign power whatever a right to dispose of either without their consent. Resolve that our ancestors who first settled these colonies were, at the time of their immigration from the mother country, entitled to all the rights, liberties, and immunities of free and natural born subjects within the realm of England. Resolve that by such immigration, they by no means forfeited, surrendered, or lost any of those rights, but they were and their descendants now are entitled to the exercise and enjoyment of all such of them as their local and other circumstances enable them to exercise and enjoy. Resolve that the foundation of English liberty and of all free government is a right in the people to practice in their legislative council, and as the English colonists are not represented, and from their local and other circumstances cannot properly be represented in the British Parliament, they are entitled to a free and exclusive power of legislation in their several provincial legislatures, where their right of representation can alone be preserved. In all cases of taxation and internal polity, subject only to the negative of their sovereign, in such manner as has been heretofore used and accustomed. But from the necessity of the case and a regard to the mutual interests of both countries, you cheerfully consent to the operation of such acts of the British Parliament as are bona fide, restrained to the regulation of external commerce for the purpose of securing the commercial advantages of the whole empire to the mother country and the commercial benefits of its respective members, excluding every idea of taxation, internal or external, for raising a revenue on the subjects in America without their consent. Resolve that the respective colonies are entitled to the common law of England, and more especially to the great and inestimable privilege of being tried by their peers of the vicinage according to the course of that law. Resolve that they are entitled to the benefit of such of English statutes as exist at the time of their colonization, in which they have by experience respectfully found to be applicable to their several local and other circumstances. Resolve that these His Majesty colonies are likewise entitled to all the immunities and privileges granted and confirmed to them by royal charters or secured by their several codes of provincial laws. Resolve that they have a right peaceably to assemble, consider of their grievances, and petition the king, and that all prosecutions, prohibitory proclamations, and commitments for the same are illegal. Resolve that the keeping a standing army in these colonies in times of peace without the consent of the legislature of that colony in which such army is kept is against law. Resolve it is indispensably necessary to good government and rendered essential by the English Constitution that the constituent branches of the legislature be independent of each other, that therefore the exercise of legislative power in several colonies by a council appointed during pleasure by the crown is unconstitutional, dangerous, and destructive to the freedom of American legislation. All in each of which the aforesaid deputies, in behalf of themselves and their constituents, do claim, demand, and insist on as their indubitable rights and liberties, which cannot be legally taken from them, altered, or abridged by any power whatever, without their own consent, by their representatives in their several provincial legislature. In the course of or inquiry, we find many infringements and violations of the foregoing rights, which from an ardent desire that harmony and mutual intercourse of affection and interest may be restored, we pass over for the present and proceed to state such acts and measures as have been adopted since the last war, which demonstrate a system formed to enslave America. Resolve that the following acts of Parliament are infringements and violations of the rights of the colonists, and that the repeal of them is essentially necessary in order to restore harmony between Great Britain and the American colonies. The several acts of George III, chapter 15, chapter 34 through 5, George III, chapter 25 through 6, George, chapter 52 through 7, George III, chapter 41, and chapter 46 through 8, George III, chapter 22, which imposes duties for the purpose of raising the revenue in America, extend the power of the admiralty courts beyond their ancient limits, deprive the American subject of trial by jury, authorize the judge's certificate to indemnify the prosecutor from damages that he might otherwise be liable to, requiring oppressive security from a claimant of ships in good seas before he shall be allowed to defend his property, and are subversive of American rights. Also, 12 George III, chapter 24, entitled in total, an act for the better securing his majesty's dockyards, magazines, ships, ammunition, and stores, which declares a new offense in America and deprives the American subject of a constitutional trial by jury of the vicinage, by authorizing the trial of any person charged with the committing any offense described in the said act, out of the realm to be indicted and tried for the same in any shire or county within the realm. Also, the three acts passed in the last session of Parliament for stopping the port and blocking up the harbor of Boston, for altering the charter and government of Massachusetts Bay, and that which is entitled an Act for the Better Administration of Justice, etc. Also, the act passed in the same session for establishing the Roman Catholic religion in the province of Quebec, abolishing the equitable system of English laws and erecting a tyranny there, to the greater danger from so total a dismilitarily of religion, law, and government, and of the neighboring British colonies, by the assistance of whose blood and treasure the said country was conquered from France. Also, The act passed in the same session for the better providing suitable quarters for officers and soldiers in His Majesty's service in North America. Also, that the keeping a standing army in several of these colonies in time of peace without the consent of the legislature of the colony in which such army is kept is against law. To these grievous acts and measures, Americans cannot submit, but in hopes their fellow subjects in Great Britain will, on a revision of them, restore us to that state in which both countries found happiness and prosperity. We have for the present only resolved to pursue the following peaceable measures. Want to enter into a non-importation, non-consumption, and non-exportation agreement or association. To prepare an address to the people of Great Britain and a memorial to the inhabitants of British America. And 3, to prepare a loyal address to His Majesty agreeable to resolutions already entered into. All right. So, again, you have those who originally came over here to work on the plantations of James the First in the colonies, right? Setting up a trade and a barter system with us who was already here. So as they came over here and set up a trade and barter system, James is issuing out charters, right? James is allowing them to do business on his family's colonies, because James is essentially, he's the plug. James is the plug, and he's able to set up charters over here for his subjects to do business. Now, we're talking about the London Company and the Massachusetts Bay Company. And as they're doing business, they're establishing shires and counties, even parishes. They're setting up local laws and stuff like that to be able to adhere to, right? And we're allowing them to do it. But then what begins to happen is their descendants, as they more and more of them come over here, their descendants and their slaves, their Slavs, right, that they send over here to work in the colonies. They're now getting to the point where they don't have any representation in Parliament, but George now is issuing all of these new policies that's binding them. See, they don't have the freedom that they used to have anymore, because George is like, nah, G, no, I'm gonna need more money. I need more silver. I need more gold. I need more watermelons. Y'all not sending enough back over here. So he's putting all these stipulations on them. He's making sure that he got a standing army right there, so you can bag them up anytime you want to, and send them back to Europe so that they can be tried again, and then sent back over here to work for a lifetime. And so what they're saying is, well, we really are operating under the laws of the great law of peace. which the American Indian or the Moorish tribes have already set up. And so that is adhere that's not allowing us to adhere to the Great Law of Peace. Like these new stipulations that you try and put us under, that no, it's not adherent to that. We don't want that over here. Keep that in Europe, because we're not doing that over here. All right. So when Prophet Noble Drew Ali said that the law has been in place since 1774 and it has not changed, that's exactly what it is. This law has been in place since 1774 and it has not changed. This declaration and resolves of the First Continental Congress, it hasn't changed at all. So the only thing that Europe can do over here is adhere to this declaration since 1774. This declaration has been in place. So that's why we didn't need the 14th and 15th Amendments. We already had it here. Because in a new era of time, we integrated into this system. So when the prophet said, after the Great Rebellion, you had the South coming into the Union. So now it gave us power and authority to enforce the Declaration and Resolves of the First Continental Congress. And because, again, it was way more of us than it was of those who were in representative positions in the North, and we had all of the raw goods down South. Like, in order for them to take us out, they had to do it strategically. We're talking about war after war after war after war after war. So at the same time that they're supposed to be going through all these wars, we're going through the French and Indian Wars. We're going through the Creek Wars. We're going through the Mexican Wars. We're going through the Seminole Wars. We're going through the Gullah War. All of these wars that we're actually in and we're going through at the same time, you got what's called the Revolutionary War. At the same time, you have all of these different scrimmages and militarized attacks for years before they was finally able to take us over in 1865. But that was a joint group effort to knock us out the box and allow the pale-skinned Europeans to rule and reign. But even their time has come up. It's over with. And you see what we doing? We creating fictitious RICO charges for protesters. This is us doing this. This is us doing this, y'all. Islam, brother Marcel Williams, gratitude for coming on. So let's look at who's running these Admiralty courts. All right, let's see who's running these Admiralty courts in its ancient limits. So, admiral, 12th century, the Saracen commander or chieftain. From Old French admiral, Saracen military commander, any military commander, ultimately from medieval Arabic emir. military commander, probably via medieval Latin use of the word by Muslim military leader. Yeah, so the admiral comes from the word emir. So if you're an admiral, you are an emir in Islam, right? Let's see what the emir is. See what the emir is. I'm gonna go down to here. Says among Arabic or Muslim peoples, chief of a family or tribe, a ruling prince, a ruling prince, the chief or the chief of a ruling tribe. That's what the emir is, right? So the emir is running this ancient admiralty courts, right? So I wanted to look a little bit more into these admiralty courts. And I found this in the book titled, let's see, what is the title of this book? A Treatise on Maritime Law, including the law of shipping. Including the law of shipping, the law of marine insurance, and the law and practice of admiralty. Right? A treatise on maritime law, including the law of shipping, the law of marine insurance, and the law and practice of admiralty. All right. So I wanted to go down here. On page 506, and it reads Law and Jurisdiction of Admiralty. Section 2. The extent of admiralty jurisdiction as determined by the subject matter of the action. And I want to go down to the little footnotes. Right? And the footnotes reads a title to sea prize must be derived from commissions under the Admiralty, which is the great fountain of maritime authority. And the military force on land is not invested with any commission so derived. A captain, therefore, at sea made by such a force on land ensures the benefit of the Lord High Admiral. The Lord High Admiral would receive all of the benefits and admiralty. So, so here we go. The great fountain of maritime authority. Right. So I wanted to look more into this maritime authority, or the Admiralty Authority, which is the maritime authority. And what we found was that the title is an absolute title in Admiralty and Maritime Authority. It's an absolute title. So, what is an absolute title? Because Prophet Noah Drew Ali told us that he brought us a title to our vast estate, right? In chapter 17. Matter of fact, let's read it. In chapter 17, I'm going to go to chapter 17, which is Jesus appears fully materialized before Apollo and the Silent Brotherhood in Greece, appears to Claudia and Juliet on the Tiber near Rome, appears to the priests in the Egyptian temple at Heliopolis. I want to go down to, let's start at verse 1. And it reads, Apollo with the Silent Brotherhood of Greece was sitting in a Delphine grove. The oracle had spoken loud and long. The priests were in the sanctuary, and they looked. The oracle became a blaze of light. It seemed to be on fire and all consumed. The priests were filled with fear. They said, a great disaster is to come. Our gods are mad. They have destroyed our oracle. But when the flames have spent themselves, a man stood on the oracle's pedestal and said, Allah speaks to man not by oracle of wood and gold, but by the voice of man. The gods have spoken to the Greeks in the kindred tongues through images made by man, but Allah, the One, now speaks to man through Jesus, the only Son, who was and is and nevermore will be. This oracle shall fail, the living oracle of Allah, the one who will not fail. Apollo knew the man who spoke. He knew it was the Nazarene, who once had taught the wise men in the Acropolis and had rebuked the idol worshippers upon the Athens beach. And in a moment, Jesus stood before Apollo and the Silent Brotherhood and said, Behold, for I have risen from the dead with gifts for men to bring you the title of your vast estate. Before I have risen from the dead, right? I'm rising out of the ancient authority, the realm of maritime, and I'm giving you the title to your vast estate, right? That's what Prophet Noah Drew Ali did because he had absolute title. Prophet Jesus had absolute title to the estate, the vast estate. Now, many of us, we still stuck. We have no idea what the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America is speaking to. We are stuck in allegory and theory. And then you have those of us who actually will take the time to find what these words, these meanings, these phrases actually mean and apply them in real life. So, absolute title. What is it? How it works? What is an absolute title? An absolute title to a property, also known as a perfect title, right? A perfect title because you're working to become what? Perfected man. That's the title. It's free of any encumbrances or deficiencies. An absolute title gives an unequivocal right of ownership to the owner and cannot be disputed or challenged by anyone else. What? This is opposed to titles with liens and attachments or judgments against them. What happens when you go to court, right? When you go to court, they already got attachments on you, right? That's what a warrant is. All right, so that's an attachment, a warrant. They got liens on you, right? Because they already then went and set up to be able to get revenue every day that you're in court or you're in prison off of the Social Security account through the birth certificate, right? And then judgments. So I'm going to give you the next 25 years so you can think about what you did, sir, ma'am. Yeah, judgments, right? These are encumbrances and deficiencies. But Prophet Noble Drew Ali, as perfected man with absolute title, brought us back into the uniting of Islam, brought us back into the uniting of the Moorish Science Temple of America, so that we could have the perfect title. So that we would have absolute title, giving us unequivocal right of ownership to the owner and cannot be disputed or challenged by anyone. That's why I don't understand. Everybody keep going to court, but you not taking your Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America in there with you. You're not taking your Divine Constitution of Bylaws in there with you. You're not taking the certificate for the Moorish Science Temple of America in there with you. But you keep talking about the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, which is a prayer. It literally is a prayer. And at the same time, you talking about you ain't religious. What you praying for all the time, yeah? Why do you keep praying? You keep praying to a sovereign for freedom. You already free. See, what happens is we've been bound so long in our minds that we don't even realize that we free. That's the crazy part about it. That's the craziest part about it. We're already free and do not realize that we're free. So we keep praying and praying and praying. You don't need no middleman. We don't need a middleman. Don't you got your nationality identification card? Don't your nationality identification card say that this is your nationality identification card for the Moorish Science Temple of America and birthrights for the Moorish Americans, etc.? We honor all the divine prophets, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius. May the blessings of the God of your father, may the blessings of God of our Father, Allah, be upon you that carry this card. I do hereby that you are a Muslim under divine laws of the Holy Quran of Mecca. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Like, what? Come on, y'all. Come on. What I mean, why we just don't we still don't understand it? What is it? We don't comprehend? Are we slow of learning? Right? Why aren't we using what has been given to us for our freedom so that we're not encumbered upon, so that we don't have any of these deficiencies? Islam, key takeaways. An absolute title is a property title that gives an equivocal right of ownership to the owner and any buyers to whom the property is sold. Absolute titles have no liens, attachments, or encumbrance to them. The holder of the absolute title is free to sell the property at their discretion. How absolute titles work. A title search will usually unearth any problems with regard to the title of a property. The search is well worth the cost when someone is considering buying real estate. A title search is usually conducted at the local registry office. Title search agencies specialize in researching properties to ensure that the seller has at least a sellable interest in the property they put on the market. Moreover, the title search will also reveal if there are any remaining obligations associated with the property because they remain connected to the property and not the owner. All right. So I'm gonna put this link in the chat for y'all. Y'all don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure that you share this to all of your social media platforms. If you'd like to give a donation, the donation information is on the screen. So we're gonna get into some of these admirals, right? These emirs, these admirals, these emirs. Some of these admirals, some of these emirs that was here. Shout out to the brother Mosi Fatinil, because he shared something this past week on Facebook. And the slow kids in the back did not understand how to answer it, so they didn't answer it. So this is Prophet of War, right? Prophet of War, Josiah Francis, and the Creek War by Frank L. Osley Jr. Hildes Hadjo, or Hadjo, known properly as Josiah Francis, was the most renowned holy man among the Creek Indians during the first 2 decades of the 19th century, right? We're talking about these admirals, right? Who have these emirs who have ancient admiralty jurisdiction. He says he was the most renowned holy man among the Creek Indians during the first 2 decades of the 19th century. He rose to power during the War of 1812, and from that time forward until his death by hanging, Francis was the most important Creek prophet and proponent of war. He was mixed blood himself, but he hated the white man and his culture. So we got to dodge the hijack on it, because we know the white man ain't have no culture. The white man only had what his slave masters provided him, right? Because the quote unquote so-called white man is the slave, also known as the Slav, also known as the Briton, right? The word Briton is synonymous with the Slav itself. We ain't talking about the ancient Britons because the ancient Britons look just like us. All right. It says now when it says he was a mix, so that just means that his father was a European, his mother was American Indian. All right. So, but he hated white men in his culture. Born in the 1770s, Francis' father was a white man, while his mother was likely a Creek woman. See, likely. When they say likely, mostly, maybe, that's cap. That's reaching. That just means I don't really know. So I'm just going to add something to fill in the blanks. It said, little is known of his mother, but his father was a blacksmith who quite possibly also engaged in silversmithing. See, he was a European man who had trade, right? He had a trade, so that means that he had wealth. He wasn't no slave coming over here. The childhood of the Creek prophet remains a mystery, but evidence suggests that Francis and his parents followed the teachings of traditional Creek religious leaders. Francis was to emerge as the most important Creek prophet, and he was significantly influenced by the conservative religious beliefs of his elders. Francis was to become the most ardent advocate of war against the white man, for he believed in the supremacy of the Creek culture over that of the whites. So basically, um, he believed in his indigenous culture here over his father's culture from Europe. Francis probably had, which is meaning that he followed Islam instead of Catholicism or Christendom. Francis probably, here goes some more hijack. Francis probably had a comfortable childhood and helped in his father's business. He had a normal, perhaps prosperous childhood, although the other Creek children may have teased him because of his white blood. There's no such thing as white blood. Blood is blue when it's in the body, and it is red when it is out of the body. Period. It seems that Francis became obsessed with proving himself to be more of an Indian than his full-blooded friends. His later his later in life would certainly suggest this to be correct. His refusal to wear the white man's clothing while on a trip to New Orleans with the British Army indicates his rejection of white material, which is Christendom, right? He didn't want nothing to do with Christianity, Catholicism. Said, when one considers the rejection of things white as the chief character of all of the Creek prophets, it is significant that all of them were mixed bloods, as indeed were most of the battle leaders, like William Weatherford and Peter McQueen. Francis was a natural showman, and he boasted that he could fly through the air and live underwater. Francis may have learned ceremonial techniques from Sikbul, who was probably Francis' mentor and who greatly influenced Francis. The measure of Sikbul's influence cannot be gauged since Francis could not write and thus left no memoir or letters. Okay, they're saying he couldn't write. Peep this. However, it is well known that Francis carefully calculated his actions to arouse the fears of the Indians and convince them that he has supernatural powers. Francis used his position to foster support for Tecumseh, and many Indians who opposed Tecumseh died under strange circumstances, often at night. The deaths were often accompanied by strange sounds and shadows and objects that flew through the air thus adding to the fear of the supernatural. In one incident, the non-literate Francis cleverly made marks. Cleverly, listen. Francis cleverly made marks on a piece of paper, which he claimed was a letter to the Spanish governor of West Florida. So he's writing to another admiral, another emir of West Florida. Now, West Florida, Mississippi, Alabama. All right. West Florida, Mississippi, Alabama. Says that he cleverly made marks on a piece of paper which he claimed was a letter to the Spanish governor of West Florida. He asserted that the Great Spirit had taught him to write in Spanish. To write in Spanish. Man, you can't make none of this up. So the brother Fat and Ill, right? The brother Fat and Ill. The brother Fat and Ill posted this 6 days ago. And this is from the Moorish Guide. Right? It says, all Moors who wish to learn the national language are free to do so. You are invited to attend school on Wednesday evening from 7:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. at 770 Fulton Street. Now, the brother Fat and Ill asked a question. He said, Moors, what is the national language? Right? Because the newspaper article said all Moors who wish to learn the national language are free to do so. Fat Neil said, Moors, what is the national language? So when he asked the question, again, for the slow kids in the back, they didn't answer. You know, it was a joke and unreal to them. And I do mean the slow kids in the back. So I made a post and I said it will be a combination of ISO, which is the International Standard of Languages, 639-2 languages. Our language is based in Afro-Asiatic phonetics, whether it be Algonquian, Moabite, Old English, Arabic, Creole, Hebrew, Hittite, etc. Today, Spanish has a blend of them all. Today, Spanish has a blend of them all. Didn't Prophet Noah Ali tell us to learn Spanish? Ain't you know what they said? This is the Prophet said that we should learn Spanish. Because that's our national language. You think it's a coincidence that all of the archaic languages has a base in Spanish? It's not a coincidence at all. And they said that the emir, the admiral, Prophet Josiah Francis, could not write But the Great Spirit gave him the ability to be able to write a letter to the emir, the admiral in West Florida, in Spanish. He didn't, he couldn't write, but he was able to write in Spanish to the Spanish governor, and the Spanish governor just so happened to be an emir, the admiral. You think that's a coincidence? Like that's not a coincidence at all, y'all. That's fact, no fiction. So let's look at Josiah some more. Let's see what Josiah got going on. This is in that article. I'm gonna download the article, y'all, and I'm gonna upload it to Mighty Network so y'all can grab that and read more of it. This is the National Park Service. I'll put this link in the chat as well. So it says Josiah Francis. Josiah Francis was a major red stick religious leader of the Creek Indians of Alabama. At Alabama, right? Alabama. See, he got those fringes on his shoulder, right? See, he got those fringes on his shoulder. What is that on his head though? What in the what they got going? What dang, that look kind of from dang, is that a red turban? Is that a red turban? Y'all put some sevens in the chat. Is that a red turban? Man, come on, y'all. Let's says Josiah Francis was a major red stick religious leader of the Creek Indians of Alabama and of the Creek Civil War, which became a war against the United States in 1813 and 1814. Francis, also known as Hillis Harjo, Crazy Brave Medicine, was born to a South Carolina frontier silversmith and a Creek Indian mother in central Alabama around 1770. Partially under the influence of the Shawnee leader Tecumseh, he became a prophet of the Red Stick movement, which attempted to purify Creek culture of foreign elements. We don't want no Christendom. We ain't got time for no Christianity over in these parts. In 1812, he and other prophets began a civil war against the Creek Indian National Council, which sought closer relationships with Christianity, with the United States. Following an attack at Burnt Corn Creek in southern Alabama by American militia, William Weatherford and Francis planned counterattacks on the American Fort Mims in Baldwin County in August 1813 after the major U.S. victory over the Creeks at Horseshoe Bend in March 1814. Francis and some 1,000 Red Sticks fled to North Florida, where they soon aligned with British forces and became known as Seminoles. In 1815, Francis traveled to London in hopes of ratifying an agreement recognizing the Creek Nation. The British government, reluctant to restart a war in America, honored Francis as a valuable ally but made no official recognition of his diplomatic mission. Did that come on, y'all. He aligned with the British forces in northern Florida. Y'all, is that a sash around my man? Is that a sash around my man? Y'all, is that what? Is that a sash around my, come on. I'm just looking at his getup. Like he got a sash. He got on like I'm just let me continue to read. After returning to his settlement near Fort San Marcos de Apalache on the coast of northwest Florida in 1870, and Francis attempted to reconcile with the Americans in Alabama, but was soon outraged by American assaults on Indian settlements. He reverted to counterattacks on U.S. military outposts and vessels. Some scholars regard this as the beginning of the First Seminole War. So you think he just fought the war by himself? He just got it by himself? Oh, he just went to Britain and he asked for recognition, and he just came back, and all of a sudden he just started a war. Come on, y'all. He got recognized. Because again, the British nobility and the American Indians are family members. It's the ones who are the mixed breeds who could not become free. Right? Those are the ones who the ones with the admixtures who couldn't become free. Those are the ones that's fighting us down south. Those are the ones like your man Benjamin Franklin, who said everywhere he went in the world it was nothing but swarthy, 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 and tawny. Oh, why should the American colonies be bombarded with the swarthy and tawny noble men and women? We just want to have our own. We just want to be able to have something of our own, even though we can never really be free because our mothers are Slavs. Yeah, these are the ones that Britain been fighting, who teamed up with us. And when they say recognize, he didn't need to get recognition. They recognized him like, oh yeah, that's my cousin right there. That's what they're talking about when they say recognize. So it says General Andrew Jackson invaded West Florida with the U.S. Army and Creek allies on March 15, 1818, burning Indian towns down between the Apapaloochla and Suwannee rivers. Francis and another rustic, Hamath Lemiko, were captured aboard an American schooner anchored at Fort San Marcos. On April 8, 1818, Andrew Jackson ordered that Francis and Hamath Lamiso or Lamico be brought ashore and executed. Both Red Stick warriors were later buried outside the gates of the fort. They were brought onto that little small ship. They was brought onto a fishing boat, a small one at that. And these the same so-called ships that they claim they had 600, 900, 1,000 slaves on. When you can't have no more than 35, no more than 35 at a time. It's including the captain and crew. So yeah, this is Francis. Francis got on he rocking a turban. Francis got on a red turban. He got on a sash around his waist. Yeah, Francis was out getting it. He was an admiral, right? Writing in Spanish. Matter of fact, he was an illiterate admiral at that. So they say. Who was able to write letters in Spanish. Wow. They actually put a sash around him and a red turban on his head. Mm. Right. Right, His Majesty the Magnificent Moorish Regalia. Islam, Sister Neb and Bay. So I wanted to share some pictures, some more pictures of these admirals. Let's see. Let's find these admirals. Let's find some more admirals, y'all. Because I find it suspicious that we talk about Moors and Moorish culture is always taking our attention away from here. Yeah, it's always wanting us to look across the world, look everywhere but here, right? So let me blow this up. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. If anybody wants to come up, you can. All right, here go one of the Miami Chiefs, one of the Miami Admirals, one of the Miami Emirs. All right, and I'm not gonna try to pronounce their names and chop them up, but I'm gonna go through them so we can all see them. Here go another one, Miami. Miami's is up there, and when I say Miami, I'm not talking about Florida down there. I'm talking about Ohio, the area of Ohio, Illinois, where the Miamis were. And sometimes still are, you can find some of the Miamis. Look at their headdress. Right, look at their headdress. For some reason, they love turbans and feathers, right? Then we have you have another one. Now he was directly a part. He was one of the Red Sticks. Look at his headdress with his feather. Oh, look at this one. Peep this one right here, y'all. Because you see him, right? You see him. What's that in the background? You see the Slavs in the background? And they what? In teepees. The Slavs in the background in teepees. Didn't they tell us that we was the ones in teepees? They said when they came here, they seen a copper colored people and they was living in teepees. Here it is. We been had longhouses. We talking about longhouses. We talking about apartment buildings, brick and mortar. Brick and mortar. Not no daggone straw houses. Brick and mortar. They want to tell us that we was living in teepees. Nah, fam. They was the ones living in teepees. The Slavs, those was the ones that couldn't wear clothes. So like when you see them depict us with no clothes on when they met us, come on y'all, think about it. We always the best dressed. We always had clothes. We always had drip. They put us in without clothes so they can make it seem like we're so called quote unquote savage. Right? Those who don't want to of our ancestors who didn't take the mark of the beast, those who didn't adhere to Christendom. They always got to put us without clothes on, but you got no clothes on, but he sure got a necklace on, right? But he ain't got no clothes on. But he got a necklace on. Come on, y'all. So he got jewelry and no clothes. Mm. Right, and this is a dwarf. This was one of the slaves. You see, he ain't got no clothes on. See, he ain't got no jewelry. See, he don't even have on a feather quilt. I mean, feather kilt. My bad. Right, because when they depict us with the pictures with the feather kilt, that means that we are of the nobility class, but we still wore clothes. They just drew us like that, um, constantly making us appear to be as if we are savages, like we just didn't wear clothes and shoes. It's crazy. Right, it's one of the Shawnee chiefs. Look how big he is. Look at us with his turban on. Dude, huge. Right. This is one of the admixtures. And they say he is celebrated, chiefly celebrated chief among the Miamis. A celebrated chief. Look how big his hands is. Y'all, we were extremely, I mean, a lot of us are tall now, but back then, it's on a whole nother level. Look how big his hands is. Come on, y'all. Look how big his hands is. Look at his turban. He on a red, white, and blue one. Let me be quiet. Let me keep on going. And he got on red, white. Let me move on. Right. Shout out to the world class. Islam. Palaces, castles. Shout out to my brother Roy Bay. Oh yeah, you know he dripped out. One of the Miami Chiefs. He dripped out. He got on a tarbouche with feathers. Y'all think it's coincidence that he got on red and blue? I don't think so. And white. Y'all think it's coincidence they all got military uniforms on? You know, it's so crazy because they always depict us without no clothes on. But we seem to be able to find these military uniforms, huh? Y'all see his y'all see his medallion around his neck? Y'all see how he got his turban tied? And he got his red sticks, one of the red sticks. That's right, Sister Neb and Bay, signs and symbols. I think it's coincidence they all got these turbans on and these feathers in their turbans. I don't think it's a coincidence. They all got uniforms. Potawatomi chief, aka Admiral, aka Amir. Oh yeah, he big mad. He got captured. Look at his fez. The crescent moon. Got the crescent moon brooch with the feather coming out of it. He got gold around his neck. You know he got bread. A Chippewa chief. Look how he got his turban tied. I mean, he got his turban tied like most of us have our turban tied today, ain't it? In Miami, chief. I think this is a woman. The only reason why I say is because she got earrings on and her hands aren't so masculine. Oh, here he go. Here he go. It's the big homie right here. The one that opens the door. The Shawnese prophet. Teskawada. Teskawada, the prophet. Look at how he got his hair tied with his turban. Teskawada. Yeah, that's the big homie. A noted Chippewa chief. A young Miami chief. Look at how he got his turban tied. Look at the colors in that turban. Don't that turban look like something we see today? I mean, haven't we seen a lot of brothers wear their turban just like this today? Look at this one. You see this one real good. Look at his turban. I mean, we still wearing our turbans like that right now, today. Right, red and green. I'm looking, see if I can find the other one. Here it go. Look at this one. All green. We still wearing our turbans like this today. All green. Right? As a matter of fact, if we go and we look up that type of turban, it's called the kafaya. And the kafaya or the kufaya, related to kufa, also known in Arabic as the gitara or the shema or hatha, is a traditional headdress worn by men from parts of the Middle East. It is fashioned from a square scarf and usually made of cotton. Well, daggone it, wasn't Alabama one of the key states producing cotton? I mean, we can't make none of this stuff up. It's right here. It's been here right in front of us. We just been conditioned and been trained and taught to not look at it and not to relate to it. Right? The origin of it, right? The origin, it says it is believed to have originated from the Sumerian civilization in ancient Mesopotamia and modern day Iraq. Right? So ancient Mesopotamia, that's over here. Ain't no way that folks looking like this is no original Iraqi. No, we not going for that. Uh, where is it at? Here we go. It says, as well as Arabs, Kurds, and Yazidis also wear this headpiece. The Iraqi Turkmen, right? The Turkmen, the Turkmen, the Turks. We know who the original Turks are, right? The ones that look like those down in Turks and Caicos, right? The real Turks, the ones in South Carolina, right? Also wore the headpiece. Says during his sojourn with the Marsh Arabs of Iraq, Gavin Young noted that the local Sayyids, venerated men accepted as descendants of the Prophet Muhammad and Ali bin Abi Talib, wore a dark green kafaya. the dark green kafaya, in contrast to the black and white checkered, examples typical of the area's inhabitants. So the dark green kafaya was the descendants of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So when we see our ancestors over here, with the dark green kafaya, we know that this is one of the descendants of Prophet Muhammad in Alabama, which is a Arabic word, just like algebra, alchemy, alcohol. See, we can't make none of this up. Cause see, Alabama is one of the one of our ancient nation states within the empire. Do y'all understand that in Alabama, the marble in Alabama is so rare and is so vast that it is the marble that's used in the majority of the ancient buildings in Washington, D.C.? As a matter of fact, it's so vast that there was a woman who got hit with a meteorite by a marble meteorite in Alabama. Like, that's how much, like, the sky is raining marble in Alabama. That's how much marble Alabama has, always have had. So when we see one of the descendants of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, right here in Alabama as a chief, as an emir, it is no coincidence, y'all. It's no coincidence at all. Now, I'm not going to say that um, all these chiefs was on the up and up. I can't speak for all of them because it was some of them. Someone was hiding right in front of us. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find. Here we go. Here he is. This one right here. Chippewa Chief. You see his hand? Y'all can see his hand. Put sevens in the chat if you can see his hand. You see his hand placement? You see, these the ones that was selling us out. These are the ones that was making the backdoor deals. Remember that face. Remember that face. Because his ancestors look just like him today. See, that's called the hidden hand. Right? The hidden hand is what many of these so-called world leaders have constantly utilized the hidden hand to let you know that they're in their little societies together. Here goes the hidden hand. But we see Prophet Noble Drew Ali. He didn't hide his hand. Mm-mm. His hand is in plain sight for all to see. Because he came to unveil the secrets, wake us up, remind us who we are. And everybody over in the world, throughout the world, know exactly who Prophet Noble Drew Ali was. Right? Excuse me. This is the encyclopedia. When they try to act like they don't know who Moors are, who Prophet Noble Ali was. Right, it says the Moorish Americans established branches of their community in several northern cities and made their headquarters in Chicago in the 1920s, claimed to be descendants of Moroccan Muslims, and constructed a nationalist identity by changing their names, nationality, religion, diet, and dress. Their esoteric spiritual philosophy was constructed from Islam. Now they say Christianity, but it definitely wasn't from Christianity. And they claim Black Freemasonry. In 1927, Ali wrote their sacred text, the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple, also called the Circle 7 Quran, to teach his followers their pre-slavery religion, nationality, and genealogy. Genealogy. To support his case for a Moorish American identity, he emphasized two important points. First, Black Americans were really Asiatics, the descendants of Jesus. And second, the destiny of Western civilization was linked to the rise of the Asiatic nation. Asians, Africans, Native Americans, and Black Americans. Now we know the Asiatic nation are those who have been deemed to be Negroes, color folks, Black people, African Americans, not Africans, but African Americans, American Indians, Ethiopians, Mexicans, San Salvadorians, etc. These are the Asiatics. It further reads, in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple, Noble Drew Ali also argued that truth, peace, freedom, justice, and love were the Islamic ideals that his followers should emulate. The Moorish Science Temple survived in fractions after Noble Drew Ali's mysterious death in 1929. Listen, listen, listen. And received official recognition for its Islamic linkages to Morocco from the Moroccan ambassador to the United States in 1986. And receive official recognition for its Islamic linkages to Morocco from the Moroccan ambassador to the United States in 1986. 1986. The world been knew who we was. I don't know how long it's going to take us to figure out and wake up who we are. But the world been knew who we was. 1986. I was 3. Many of us wasn't even born yet. Yes, sister. Neb Mbe Amir is Arabic. It's also Spanish. Islam. Islam, His Majesty, the Magnificent Ill. Yeah, you was too. 86. Yeah, the world been knew who we were. The world knows who we all are. A lot of us are waking up. More and more of us are waking up now. Like the veil is really lifting. I'm gonna put the link in the chat again if anybody wants to come up on the platform and speak. You want to say something, you can. Islam, brother, Fat and Ill. I don't know if you got to look at um, what I showed earlier on your post. What I showed earlier on your post when you ask Moors, what is the national language? Right, you asked this question 6 days ago, Moors, what is the national language? Right, because the Moorish Guide said all Moors who wish to learn the national language are free to do so. And when you ask that, my response was it would be a combination of ISO 639-2 languages, right, which is according to the International Standard of Languages. Says our language is based in the Afro-Asiatic phonetics, whether it be Algonquian, Moabite, Old English, Arabic, Creole, Hebrew, Hittite, etc. Today, Spanish has a blend of them all. Because when we went and we looked at the prophet Josiah Francis, it said that in one incident, the non-literate Francis cleverly made marks on a piece of paper which he claimed was a letter to the Spanish governor of West Florida. Right now, supposedly he couldn't read and write, but he was able to write a letter to the Spanish West Florida governor, right? He was a chief, he was a prophet, and he was communicating with another prophet, which was also a chief, a shamir, a amir, right? A sheik, a sachem. So shout out to you, brother Fatanil, for definitely asking that question. Islam, again, make sure that y'all share this to all of your social media platforms. Thumb up the video. If you like to donate, you can do so. The Cash App information is across the screen. I want to say thank you again. Shout out to each and every one of you who came out, participated. We will be back here on tomorrow for Holy Night meeting. We live stream Holy Night via Zoom. If anybody would like to get more information about the Moorish Science Temple of America, you can go to our website. I just put the link in the chat. You can also call us, put our number in the chat. If there's anyone looking for law work, you can reach out to Amexim Enterprises LLC. You can go on our website and set up a free 20-minute consultation. If you need to get your trust set up, you need to set up your family's estate, you got court cases, you need to go to court, you're trying to sue somebody, reach out to us. That's what we're here for. Definitely, Moors, if you haven't already gotten into doing your family's genealogy tree, please start as soon as possible and go back as far as you can go. Right? We are working on a redress and grievance claim against all of the entities who have harmed us and our ancestors, Islam. So our goal is to have that finished by convention, Islam. We are almost also finished with our missionary booklet. There's a couple more things we need to add on to it, but we are definitely almost finished with it. Shout out to our brother, His Majesty the Magnificent L, Brother A. Griffin L. He helped out with sending a list of all the mounds, all of our mounds, our pyramids here. All right, so we're just adding the waterways as well as all of our ports. So once we finish with it. We will be. So we will have that finished, inshallah. Like I said, for convention, everyone will be able to purchase a copy of it. Islam. Yeah, Morris. If you haven't already started, make sure you have your 90 to 60 day supplies of food and goods. If you don't already, please get you a generator. Have enough water stored. Right. Put up protections from the electric attacks that they're constantly doing. Don't get stuck on the so-called aliens. Ain't no aliens. That's Project Bluebeam they got going on. Between Project Bluebeam and us being in a different, um, us being in a different location within the galaxy is what we're really seeing. So don't get caught up. Don't get caught up in the social media antics and stay woke, Morse. Definitely stay woke because there are so many traps for us to get caught up. If you haven't already started with your status correction, please get on that. If you haven't already, start to set up your trust and your family's estate and things of that nature. Please begin that. There's no reason to make meetings just to come to have somewhere to hang out at. Islam. Did anyone have any questions or comments before we close out? I'm going to put the link in the chat one more time. If nobody comes up, then I'm going to go ahead and close out. And I'll see you more tomorrow, inshallah. The green one. Islam. With that, we'll see you tomorrow. Peace and love, y'all.